We are amazing because our passion is limitless and our drive is intense. Therefore, you will not deny our grind. You are now listening to the Faith, Grind, and Inspire podcast.
Welcome back to another great episode of Faith, Grind, Inspire podcast. I am your host, Gene Alert.
And I am your co-host, Jeffrey Patrick. Let's do it.
Patrick is on another level today. I got to let you guys know that.
We got Dr. Adam Block.
Yeah, we have a very special guest.
Very special guest.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you. Well, this podcast is about, it's a podcast on the mindset of entrepreneurs. And we talk about the process, the journey, how you got from A to B, and we want to tell your story. So, first of all, I want to say thank you. I know you're a very busy man.
Very busy.
Very busy. And Patrick lets me know that all the time.
That's right.
And so I was actually very excited to have you on the show today. And I appreciate your time. And I look forward to having this conversation with you today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you both for having me. Can I start off asking you a question?
Sure.
Wait, hold on. The interview.
I'm the professor here. So I get to, if I ask questions, you know. All right. So I'd just love to know where you have such a great name. Where did it come from? Faith, Grind, Inspire.
Okay. Great question. So it actually originated from one of my friends, that asked me the question. Mm-hmm. He said, give me three, because I was trying to figure out a couple years ago, rebranding my message and an entrepreneur program that I have in schools. So he said, what three words, if someone was to say three words, ask you a question, 3 words to describe Gene Alert, what would it be? First thing that came in my mind, faith, grind, inspire. Faith, because I've always believed in the higher power. I believe that there's vision that gets put in you, but you have to put in the work. Grind, you have to put in the work. That's the word. Grind. Right?
We love that.
Yeah.
And inspire, when you have faith in yourself, you'll be able to grind, and you'll be able to inspire a nation of people to do whatever it is they need to. A nation of people to take action for themselves, to put in the grind, but they have to have faith first. You have to have the belief. You can't do anything without belief.
I like it.
So,
I love it. It's super clear. It's crisp. It sends exactly the message that you're going for is the message I received. So I didn't even have to hear the explanation. The name said it all.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you.
So
Tell us about you.
Yeah.
Sure. So I could start off telling you my background.
Hold on.
Yo, Patrick is too excited, man.
I'm just saying, Dr. Block is probably one of the smartest person I've ever come to meet in my entire life. Okay?
You told me that.
It's an honor. It's an honor. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I know some other smart people, but Dr. Block is up there. Dr. ATN. Those people are the smartest people.
Yeah.
Move the mic.
My mic?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? All right.
My wife is the smartest person I know. I hope she's listening.
She's going to be listening.
She knows.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about my background and how I got to where I am. It's a circuitous route, and I only started my own business really like a year ago, maybe a shade over a year ago.
Congratulations.
And I'm happy to. Thank you. It's been going really well. It's going to be a good 2019. I'm hoping to figure out how to make it a good 2020. But it's been a long path, and this is never where I expected to be, but I think a lot of people end up there. One of the things I think you need to think about is that, like, a lot of people see, like, Mark Zuckerberg and, like, Elon Musk, and they were guys that came out of the gate at 20, 19, 20, and started their own businesses, and I don't think it needs to be that way. In fact, I'm into statistics, so I'm going to tell you some. The average age of somebody starting their own business is like 41, 42, right? And there's a lot of older entrepreneurs out there that, they gain the experience and they see a gap in the market that they can fill, and then they try to fill it. So it is not only a young man's game. Now, some of these young guys have done very, very well with it. And there are some advantages, I think, when you're super young. In that you don't have a family to support, right? Like I have 3 kids, a mortgage, that you can't take risk in the way that you would otherwise. But when you're 21 or 22, but there are a lot of advantages you have when you're, an older entrepreneur. All right.
So your business, I want you to tell us exactly.
No, Patrick.
Should I start?
We're going to we're going 2019 now. We have to know, where's he from?
Wait,
where
I was gonna.
Oh, you were getting there?
No, but go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I just want to know. Like, are you from Long Island?
Wait, no. Who's excited here?
You're
G?
excited. I'm excited. I've been hearing about Dr. Block for about 6 months now.
So I'll tell you my background. I grew up in.
No. Professor Block, I want you to tell him how you became a professor, and then we'll. How did you become a professor?
How did I become a professor?
Yeah, how did you become a professor?
So I became a professor because I had a couple of jobs that I didn't like. And after, and I thought about things that I did like. And so let me start at the beginning, and then we'll get to how I got into government. And then that'll sort of get into why I've had lots of failures in my life.
All right, go ahead.
And I think it's important to be okay with that. It's taken me a long time to be okay with it. So I had a lot of successes at the very beginning, though. I grew up in Long Island, upper middle class family, and did really well in school. Got into a good college, and at a college, I started working at Blue Cross Blue Shield in Chicago. And from there, I basically applied to get a PhD. And I saw the one place where I knew the professor there. I'd read a book of his, and it was at Harvard. And I said, you know what? I looked actually at a bunch of bios of students, and they all sort of looked like me, had 1 or 2 years of experience. And I didn't apply anywhere else, just there. And sure enough, I didn't get in. No, but I got onto a waiting list, and I sat and waited, and then after 3 months of sitting on the waiting list, then I got in. And I spent 5 years there, and it was a remarkable experience. So, you hear a lot about Harvard. Harvard is in the press today because of the admissions bias case.
Yes.
And, I get emails about that because I'm an alum. And it was a remarkably inspiring place. I have, people complain about it. It's too gritty. It's too, meaning people are too competitive. I had just an unbelievably inspiring experience. So I have met some really smart people.
Yeah,
some really, really smart people. And I got to spend my days with them. And that was just an unbelievably humbling experience. And I tried to really embrace and enjoy it. But I didn't know what I was going to do afterwards, right? So I finished my degree, and everybody was going to be a professor, and I didn't want to be a professor. I know I am now, but I had no interest in that.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, I had no interest. If you told me then that I'd be a professor, I would have said no way. So I ended up, but it was a unique time. There was a lot of health policy that was sort of in people's minds. It was the end of the George W. Bush administration. And, there was a thought that there was going to be some health reform. And they were recruiting people like me. I'm a health economist by training. They're recruiting people like me to go work in Washington, D.C., to be the bean counters. So at the Congressional Budget Office and other offices similar to that. And I was like, you know what? That's what I want to do, because they are in deep. Have you ever heard the term policy wonk? That was what I wanted to be. That is what I am. That is what I wanted to be. And so that is what I became. So I applied for those jobs. And one of the things about Harvard is, at the end of the day, it does open doors. It just does.
It's what I say, man.
Yeah.
Right? There were things that all they saw at the top of my resume was that I was a Harvard PhD, and that was really all I needed.
That was all you needed.
Yeah. So that is the absolute truth, and that comes with some, there are some flip sides to it, because there are some expectations that you're held up to that you may not, be able to achieve because you're still, human. But yeah, so I got a job on Capitol Hill, and from 2008 to I worked for the Joint Committee on Taxation, and not this Congressional Budget Office, because the chief there convinced me, what he said to me was, this is where we make the sausage. So you hear all the stuff that goes on in the background on Capitol Hill. He's like, this is where we make the sausage. You will get to see the sausage being made.
Wow.
What goes into the bills and what doesn't. And so I did. It was a remarkable experience.
What is the one thing you think you took away from that experience, Dr. Block? If I said, tell me the one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to make me that popular, but it's
Don't worry.
Congressmen have very little impact on policy. And it's not because I'm going to say, and I mean like random congressmen. It's not because it's not because I would say lobbyists do. I'm not, and I did not become a cynic. I watched. I might be now in the current administration, but I was not in 2008. I saw a bunch of people on both sides of the aisle that truly believed that what they were doing was the right thing, and they were not doing it for money. I truly believe that. And these are people who are still my friends, and they went into this for the right reasons, even if they were on the other side of the aisle. They went into it because they believed thing that they were doing was right.
Yeah,
and it was not for money.
Right.
That was the integrity part you were talking about.
We have a responsibility as people on this planet to actually do what is right, not only for us, but what is right for everyone on this planet. You understand? We must be careful and we must be savvy enough to say our leaders have to be capable. The people we put in leadership position have to be capable, right? So tell us what you think of that.
So, I mean, what I don't want to speak about the current administration because I haven't been there for it. But, what I saw while I was on the Hill from 2008 to 2010 was that people were really, they were true believers. And if they did not, those that were opposed to, I spent all my time working on the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and those that were opposed to it.
Yeah, you can't please everyone.
No.
Well, they were opposed to it because they truly believed that it would eliminate the employer-sponsored system of healthcare, which some people believe are better, and that was fine. And so what I'm saying is, I do believe that there was integrity on both sides, and so during that time. So that was a good thing, right? That the staffers, who are primarily who I worked with, I didn't work with congressmen on a day-to-day basis. Congressmen talk to other congressmen. They don't talk to staffers, and that's how it is, and that is, I think, fine.
Right.
But so I spoke to people that reported to congressmen.
I've been wanting to ask you this, Dr. Block. What do you think about Medicare for all?
So I have
question was coming.
in my. So I will tell you, I have an article in my bag. I literally just got the print of it yesterday in the mail. I was so excited.
Yeah.
A whole article about Medicare for all. So Medicare for all is, it's a nice, simple thing, and simplicity is really important in policy. People this is something that, in my opinion, many of the Democrats, between Bill Clinton and Barack Obama, they sort of just missed. They forgot how important it is to have a simple message. And the Republicans are actually quite good at it. So Medicare for All is a simple message, which is good. However, the way that it is written now, I think, is problematic for a couple of reasons. Number one, why did Clinton Care fail? And I don't want to get too wonky here, but Clinton Care failed because Clinton Care, which was way back in 1992 when I was a kid, it failed because they were going to throw everybody off of their health care that many people were happy with, and people were scared. And so people dialed back and said no. And Medicare for All would do the exact same thing. And therefore, I think politically it is very, very problematic. So
yeah, you think
that's my.
So you okay?
Yeah.
So you
heard me fight with the folks at the Hudson Valley Access for Care.
Yeah.
I went into a meeting of people that were all pro, and I told them all the logical considerations that someone at the Congressional Budget Office would take into account, and that they were not too happy with me. But I had to go up there and say what I thought.
Tell it like it is.
How do you keep the faith and the grind and the inspiration when you have all the lawmakers ultimately controlling the policy you're trying to create?
So I saw a whole bunch of things. I mean, one of the things that I saw happen that was troubling was, the thing that you're concerned about is a policy that's happening for political, or what we called it on the Hill, optical reasons. That's bad policy. Right. An example of that was the way that the individual mandate was written. And the individual mandate was not written exactly as a tax, but sort of as a tax. And then there are all of a sudden were some constitutional issues that went all the way to the Supreme Court and actually are going back to the Supreme Court again because we were concerned, because the Democratic side was too concerned with saying that they were adding a tax anywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit frustrating because you're like, well, it's a tax if you write it this way and it's a tax if you write it that way, but you just created yourself a whole world of complications if you write it one way. So that was probably my biggest frustration. But at the end of the day, like, I'm a pragmatist, which means like the perfect is the enemy of the good, right? So if that's the way that we really believe it has to be in order to be successful, like, let's just get it done.
Let's get it done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, the ACA was not perfect. There's a whole bunch of like compromises in there made for that reason. But if that's how it has to be, like, I'm okay with that.
My favorite part of the ACA is the ACO.
Oh, ACOs? Yes.
The ACOs are probably something that I think a lot of people... As a matter of fact, what do you think the future is going to be like for the ACOs?
Yeah, so ACOs are sort of like slowly growing, and I think that there are efforts. So this is one of the sort of bipartisan areas, meaning like the Republicans and Democrats are sort of both in favor of it. I don't think the Republicans are as strongly in favor of it, but it's a way that we believe that we can control healthcare costs, right? Like, what's the problem with healthcare? The problem with healthcare is very simply that the GDP grows at 2% per year, and our industry, grows at 4% per year, which means that the share of the pie is growing. From 5% in 1960 to 10% in 1980 to 20% of GDP projected in 2023, right? That's the problem. And so what we want to do is we want to figure out how we can stop that from growing. Now, as employees in this industry, I always tell all my students, like, if the problem with your industry is that it's growing too fast and nobody knows how to stop it, you've picked a safe career.
You did pick a safe career.
You're going to be your career is going to be just fine. But how do we, like, from a policy perspective, stop it? I think ACOs are one of the things that you can use to stop it because it basically rewards the right incentives instead of just rewarding volume. Right now, every place out there is just you have a procedure, you get paid. You do an MRI, you get paid. You have a visit, you get paid.
Fee for service.
Fee for service, right. And ACOs pay you for keeping a population healthy, right? And that's, I think, where the value is. And what you see, and what I've heard anecdotally from friends that work in this, like, they really try to keep people out of the hospital. They try to keep people out of the ED.
Yeah, no, that's important.
I do think we're getting off. Are we getting off? Are we right on?
No, we're on.
All right.
No. This is people got to know.
People got to know.
They got to know. We're gonna get into.
No, we're gonna get into the mindset soon.
Okay. I don't want to get too wonky. Look, I talk about this. I talk about this all
is your
day.
passion.
This is my passion.
No.
But I don't want to get too wonky for people who are listening.
Dr. Block was my health economics professor at New York Medical College, and very hard exams.
He said, "Look, go ahead.
I'll tell you a story about that exam." So I co-taught with Doug Yark, who is the CEO of Union Community Health, and he was not there the day of the exam. I was there, and I saw everybody in the all the classroom, like, basically sweating bullets.
Yeah.
And I sent him a text message that said, "I may not get out of here alive." Because everybody was like taking the test and looking up at me and taking the test and looking up at me. And I was like, oh boy.
Seriously?
Yeah. So the next year, you guys were the guinea pigs. The next year I made it a little more manageable.
Whoa, man. For real. But all right, so let's talk some business.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about business ethics.
Yeah.
Right? We had a guest last week, and he talked about the most important thing to him was ethics and moral behavior in business. So I want for you to actually give us a definition of how you see business ethics playing out in our future society, in our contemporary world. what's going on you think that we could do different? And because I'm like I said, the moralistic capitalism is something that we should practice. See, I found that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So that's my example of how we can approach certain behavior.
So I think that, so I'll talk to you about business ethics for a little bit because it's not really an area that I know about. Moral capitalism, I think I know a little bit more about. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about that. But so for business ethics, I think it's really just doing what you say you're going to do. Right? So I write a contract with somebody and I say that I'm going to develop a return on investment model for them in 3 months. And that my business ethics is that, maybe I don't hit the 3 months, but that I can reasonably expect to hit it. And that I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. Right? And that there is nothing that's going to stop me, nothing within my sort of purview that's going to stop me from doing it that I can reasonably expect. And that if not, that they can expect that we'll, settle the contract amicably in some other way. In other words, I won't ask them to pay me the full amount of money. So that's what I view, and I try to act on that. I try to pay people on time. I expect to be paid on time because that's part of the contract. Because at the end of the day, there's a very big gap between taking leave. So I had a contract not that long ago that I was having trouble getting paid on. And to be honest, I don't think that anybody was being malicious in that. They were just having paperwork troubles. But at the end of the day, it was resulting in me not getting paid for work that I'd done like 9 months earlier. They would have been thrilled if I just dropped it because it was a lot of paperwork for them. But, that to me is not fulfilling your end of the contract, right? Like if somebody does the work for you, then you should be on your side, right? And it's satisfactory and it is what was expected. Then you should, on your side, be, willing to, pay for it, willing and able to pay
compensate.
For it. Yes.
Ethics. I'm in an ethics course right now, and I deduced that there are 4 pillars of ethics, and whether they're in healthcare or in any other type of business, I find that the autonomy, the non-maleficent, this is a tricky word, the beneficent, right, and justice. Those 4 pillars, right? If you really concentrate on those 4 things, I think you'll be able to behave in a way that, because the autonomy is the individual's extent of, that's a person in there somewhere, and then non-maleficent is saying you will do no harm. You will not harm. Beneficent means that you're going to be as helpful or as beneficial to someone as possible. And of course, justice.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that if we concentrate on those 4 pillars of ethics, I think everyone should be all right. Right.
So I agree. I mean, so then there's the other aspect of the work. At least what I do, and what I create in my role at Charm Economics is I create what I would call return on investment analysis. Actually, figure out how it's going to save you money. Not just how, but how much money it's going to save you, using information that's out there or data that you give me. Right. That's what my goal is. This business ethics aspect of it is, what if it doesn't, right? What report do I come up with if it doesn't end up saving money? I haven't had that come up yet. And so in there, as the sort of contractor, you have an obligation to do some of your own due diligence, that you have a reasonable belief that this is going to come out the way people want it to. You also can look at companies and say, well, it's not going to necessarily save money, but it's going to improve health, or it's going to do this. You can help them come up with metrics that are going to put themselves in the best possible marketing light. But from business ethics, I have a responsibility not to just fudge numbers, right? Because you absolutely could.
Yeah.
I could send a model. I could send a model, that has Excel numbers with 30 of them, and 25 of them are right, but 1 or 2 of them I've made up the the sites, and at the end of the day, the client could check. Somebody that's back checking the client could check, but probably they're not going to do that.
Man, I got called out like that. There was an assignment due for a course, and I couldn't figure out the equation, so I kind of just made up a number and put it in there. But the professor was like, "No."
Was it me?
No.
It might have been. That is definitely something I would do as a professor.
We're going to keep that on.
Yeah, big red circle. Where did this come from?
Where did this come from? Question mark.
Or what I used to get, my personal favorite was that I would get from professors, That was it. It's like, I know that you know.
Yeah, exactly. Where were we?
Yeah, moral capitalism.
Yeah.
This is something that I think has really changed in the last year and is really important.
Yeah.
So the guy who wrote a New York Times article about this relatively recently is Joseph Stiglitz. Joseph Stiglitz won the Nobel Prize in economics maybe 15 or 20 years ago. And he's a professor, I believe, at Columbia of Economics, and he writes in the New York Times relatively regularly. And what he said is, pretty simply, we should be chasing value.
Right.
Meaning, so Steve Jobs was a big fan of this, which is like he wanted to make great products, right?
Yes.
Steve Jobs wanted to make great, right? And you have one in front of you, I have one in my pocket, right? You have one in front of you. And he did make great products. And he made a lot of money, not because he was thinking about how much money to make.
How much money he's going to make.
He was thinking about making something that was going to add value to people. And then let's say it adds $500 worth of value, I'm going to charge you $400, right? Or $300. He's going to add, if it adds think about how much you're on your iPhone. You get way more than the price of the phone in value, right? So he has added value to the world by doing that. There are a lot of people that have jobs where they are not trying to add value. They're just trying to get money for themselves by maximizing the price of something, right? And that is the concern. And he thinks, so Stiglitz called it, Steve Jobs really lived it. I've read his biographies. Like, he had personal problems, but he really did live it in his business. In his business life.
Right.
So that is the thing I think we need to focus on. That is something that I personally try to focus on, which is like, am I doing something that is adding value?
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
And you want to be compensated for that value, but you want to do something that's adding value, and there's a lot of things that you can do that are not. So, for example, I worked in a hospital environment, and hospitals we think add value, right? They
Montefiore.
Right? Yes. But
I live not too far from that.
Some hospitals, many hospitals that I know of, they have wings that are devoted to determining which hospitals they can buy so that they can increase their prices. Now, increasing your prices does not add value to people. What adds value is by coming up with an electronic medical record, right, that pushes patients through the operating system, right, through an operation more quickly because the physician has all of their information.
The throughput is...
The throughput, and absolutely. So there are efficiency gains, right? So another thing that adds value is, and this is purely financial, by keeping the surgeons busier, right? There's downtime in operating rooms. And all of that downtime, you're still paying for the operating room. So if you can improve the throughput, you can you can increase your revenue and save the organization money. And that is a valuable operation to be doing. But just increasing price because you can, that is, what we would call a market failure because it's a monopoly, and that is not improving value. And I think that what Stiglitz in his article was trying to talk about was the differentiation between value propositions and things that just increase price because we're chasing after dollars.
Yeah, definitely.
What people don't realize is hospitals are businesses, right?
Yeah,
and big time businesses. But when you think hospital, a lot of people don't, especially the consumers. They don't think about it as a business. And I know you've done studies and work on the study of how people select hospitals, how people select different insurances. So tell me about that.
Sure. So it's tricky to select a health plan. So in my work, after I left Capitol Hill, the Affordable Care Act was passed. And I went over and worked for the Department of Health and Human Services writing regulations. Like, they talk about who the somebody wrote regulations. There is some regulation out there. that you can dig up in the Code of Federal Regulations, which is literally millions of pages long. And there's my name next to it, written, next to 42 CFR 105.370. Right. So there's my name next to it. So I wrote regulations, and what my objective was in the regulation was, again, I talked about this in political messages, but also in simplicity. We have a world that is really, really complicated, and healthcare is one of the most complicated sectors. And I think that it is intimidating for people, and it causes people a lot of distress in their life to have to deal with these complicated systems, also for a lot of money, right? I have a $10,000 bill and I don't even understand it. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah,
that's terrible.
real,
like, it's a lot of money, and you can't even understand it. So in my goal in writing regulations and then in doing research on this later on, it was to try to make this process as simple as possible. And so one of the things that I did was I tried to leverage what was in the ACA to say, okay, they say that there are a bunch of health plans that are out there, right, that have to be bronze, silver, and gold. Let's make them as similar as possible, so that the only thing that you're buying on is whether one costs $400 and another costs $350 a month. And remember, think about how big those numbers are I just said. It's $350, $400 for an individual. For your family, forget about it. It's $1,200 right? A month.
Right.
So these are very big financial decisions. So we're trying to make them as simple as possible for people, and that's what I've tried to do, because they're really complex decisions, and we want systems, we want regulators to be in place that will just make it simpler for us. And an example of a place that that happens pretty regularly: you fill your car up with gas. Do you worry that the gas is going to be terrible? No, you just go to Citgo or BP or whoever
93.
it is. That's right, and you put it in, right? And that's because there are regulators out there. They're saying gas must be exactly like this. Every gallon of gas has to be exactly equal.
You don't even have to worry about that.
You don't have to think about it, right? Because somebody is out there, right, with their name on some other regulation, thinking about that for you, forcing the companies to do this thing, so that your world, you don't have to worry about like the quality of the gas, or whether it's going to be sugar in your gas tank, or whether it's going to blow up your gas tank, right? You just get the gas and you just buy on price.
So wait, okay, because if they're all selling the same gas, right, 93, one place is charging $2.93 per gallon, another place is charging $3.45 per gallon.
Yeah.
That's all in.
It's all on like convenience. Like the person that he knows.
The guy who owns that gas station.
Okay.
I know a couple of guys who own gas station, and they put the price they like.
I've seen some wide variation. We went to my in-laws live in a rich town, like very rich town in Upper Westchester, and like the gas there is like $1 a gallon.
Yeah, exactly.
Everywhere else.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, you don't like it, keep driving.
Exactly.
Next to my house in Brooklyn, in Canarsie, right on Rockaway, there's two gas stations literally across the street from each other. Literally.
Yeah.
This gas station on the left charges about 30 cents more than the gas station. Actually, not even 30 cents, like 45 cents more.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot.
Literally right across the street.
And they do business.
Because the people that are going to the Belt Parkway have to make a right. And that is the gas station that you have to go to, because you're not going to make a U-turn to go to the get a gas station and then go back around. That's your stop. So that's their hustle.
I love it. Wait, so the back end economics of that is that if you're the landowner, you own the gas station plot, you're going to charge them way more. Because you know everything that you just said, you as the landowner, you know that they're charging 40 cents, and so and you're going to dip into that.
Absolutely.
Get some money.
So
go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was going to talk about Dr. Block gave us an assignment.
Oh, God.
He already knows.
No, I don't know which one this is, but this is going to be trouble.
No. He gave us an assignment, and I learned so much from this assignment that I apply it to everything that I do now, because, Dr. Block, tell us what a market disruptor is.
Oh, market disruption.
Yeah.
Sure. So market disruption.
Wait.
Yeah.
He's the one?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes, Dr.
Okay.
I'll tell you after your
Okay, excellent. So, yeah, so market disruption is something that just
Well, I'm learning.
Okay. Go ahead.
a disruption is something that comes out and just changes. It just rocks the world of the market. It's what everybody in Silicon Valley is trying to do. It's what Facebook successfully did, right? Which is it, right? People watched a lot more TV before Facebook. Even after the internet came out, right? People watched just a lot more TV. Now their time is devoted to a different screen. They're looking at Facebook. And what's Facebook's business model, right? They sell advertisements.
Yeah, they sell tons.
They sell tons of advertisements.
Even when you don't think you're looking for something, it's there. Wait a minute.
So they know exactly. Well, so they know tons of stuff about you, not just your basics, but they know basically an infinite amount of information. I use Facebook advertising. It is very helpful. I'll tell you how I use it, and it's also inexpensive and it's also easy. I don't have to go to an ad buying agency to try to publish something in the air, and I can spend $25 on it. Right, I don't have to spend. Right, $1,000 or $5,000 or $1 million for a Super Bowl spot, right? So that was a big market disruption, really, to the television industry, but also to the internet. So what we're thinking about in healthcare is what are some of the market disruptors that are out there, and one of the things is telehealth.
Telehealth.
Yeah, so telehealth is basically instead of going to the doctor, some people call it doc in a box, where you basically just pull up on FaceTime and you're like, oh, there's a dermatologist right there. I'm going to show them my my kid has a wart. Like, I'm going to show them my wart, and they're going to say, "Oh, you need to come in to have that taken off, or make
whatever
an appointment
kind of
with me."
ailment you have.
Yeah, whatever kind of ailment you can get a lot of it done. Not all of it, but a lot of it done via phone call or FaceTime.
We're going to bring someone on that's in telehealth.
Yeah,
We're going to bring someone. We're going to get someone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's changing, and so it's nice if you live in New York City, right? Because at 9 o'clock, if your son is sick,
But if you
make a
live in
phone
Timbuktu?
call. If you live in rural, it is a game changer.
Yeah.
Because there may not be a neurologist near you, but there is someone. Right, there is someone that is available by phone, and from the supply side, right, from the doctor's side, this is great. Here is my rate. I charge you $300 an hour, and I will be on call from 8 to 10 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then you can go see people. Whoever calls you, that's who you see, and they can get paid for it, so they get a little extra money on top of their salary with some of their downtime if they choose to.
Right.
So on the supply side, it's good, and on the demand side, it's good. It is a very clear market disruptor.
Right. So remember supply and demand for the market disrupting. Tell them why.
It'll be a test at the end.
He named his episode. He called himself a market disruptor. And
I like it.
His podcast episode was the market disruptor, and I was like, "Oh, that's so creative." I thought he created, but it was Dr. Block.
Dr. Block actually
Introduced you to,
And I did not create it. This is a term that's been around for really since the internet. Since the internet started getting big in the 2000s.
He
introduced you to the concept
of market disruption.
I love it.
Yeah, for real.
Now, you said something earlier, and I want to get back to the mindset of entrepreneurs, but you said something earlier about some people start as young entrepreneurs, older entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
What do you think are some of the advantages of someone starting a business as an older entrepreneur? Like not in their
We're trying to say about
teenagers.
my age.
You said it.
So yeah,
because you gave the examples of if someone's young, you said because they don't have kids, they don't have family, no responsibilities, but you didn't get to the advantages of the older.
Sure. So I know stuff. Right, right. I've been in this market for almost 20 years, and so I know where the gaps are. I have bought information products on behalf of hospitals, not just at an analyst level. So there's the 20-year-old entrepreneur. There's also the 25, 26-year-old, right, who has worked for 2-3 years in an industry, and they know it reasonably well. But they don't know it that well. Like I've, written and signed contracts on behalf of hospitals and on behalf of managed care organizations with revenue of, over $1 billion and contracts that are $100,000. And I know what those software companies can provide and what they can't provide. And I can see what my organization needs and what the gap is between those two things. Here's what the organization needs, and here is what, the software vendors out there can provide. Now, if there's a gap there, I can say, oh, do I know how to fill that gap? A lot of times you can't, right? Because a lot of times you're like, well, the data isn't available or the technology isn't available, and I'm not an engineer that can create it. But sometimes there is an opportunity there to do things that you see are available and to go out on your own and try to fill those gaps. Now, in addition, so you know what the market need is. The other thing that I have that I did not have when I was 30, a lot of people, when I left Washington and moved to New York, there's a lot of money here. There's a lot of opportunity to get seed funding here. And a lot of people thought that I should be starting my own thing because I had this unique knowledge about the ACA. At the end of the day, I wasn't ready for, and that was a good decision because I would have failed miserably. A, I didn't know the New York market, and B, I didn't have an idea. I didn't have anything that I wanted to do. I would have been hanging a shingle for nothing. But the other thing that you have is you have relationships. So some of my clients have known me from the last 5 years that I spent in New York working for health plans and for hospitals, and they have approached me. I started my LLC with just one client that got me out of the blue, that came to me out of the blue, and I just wanted to make it legit. And it would feel more legitimate if I started an LLC, limited liability corporation. You file paperwork for $200 with New York State, and then congratulations, you're a company, right? Period. That's it.
End of story.
Yep. That's all it takes. And I had a relatively small contract. Let's say it was for $10,000, right? It was not, it was nice, but it wasn't anything that is a business. You're not going to support your family off of one contract for $10,000.
You wasn't buying the summer home.
I was not buying a summer home. But then relatively soon after that, and just by accident, I had 2 or 3 other people contact me, and I tried to develop those. I tried to develop those relationships. One of them I have written a whole bunch of proposals for. You spend a lot of time on the front end writing proposals for people, and I haven't gotten any contracts from it. That was a year ago, right? And I put in probably 100 hours or more. And another, I gave a talk in England over the summer on their behalf, and I'm traveling for them again. So you never know what's going to come up. So you have to sort of explore all of your options.
Yeah, man.
Because the thing that you think is going to come up, for me at least, it's never that one, but it's always something else on the back burner, and then it just accelerates. So I think those are that's at least been my successful pathway.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh,
G.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Oh, okay. So I've been an entrepreneur since I was 18 years old. I'm 37, right? About to be 38 in November. And so what experiences, what takeaways, what differences do you see as an employee and that versus an entrepreneur, your place right now as an entrepreneur?
So at least for me, and I have a family. I have 3 kids. 2 are 6. I have twin 6-year-olds and a 4-year-old. So they're little.
They're little.
They're bigger now. My life is way easier than it was 2 years ago when they were 5 and 2. Right. That was rough. But what it allows me to do, allows me to select my clients. It allows me to, so I don't necessarily select the days or time that I travel, because I do have to travel in a way that I didn't at other jobs.
Okay.
But it allows me to select my clients. And if I want to, there's a whole bunch of opportunities that are out there on the table that I have not explored. And the reason for that is because I haven't had time, because I've elected to make time to spend with my family. So I think that is part of the advantage. Whereas if my boss wanted something, because we had a big meeting with our CFO, I stayed up till 2. I had promised my son that I was going to take him skiing on a Sunday 2 years ago for the first time. And I'd been planning on this, and I had something due from my boss with our CFO on Monday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, am I going to have to cancel? I ended up staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning and then sleeping for 2 hours and then taking my son skiing, but
No, you have to do that.
So and I have no regrets about doing that.
No,
but
you have to do that.
But as an entrepreneur, I have some more flexibility in a way that I did not have when I was working in more corporate America.
What challenges because you do have that flexibility? What challenges have you seen in the past year?
So the challenges are
for yourself.
So number one, and I talked about it a little bit, is staying organized. So number one is staying organized. So if I lose a lead, it's on me, but I lost a lead, right? And there is nobody badgering me to get that lead back in a way that you have an infrastructure above you that badgers you to do those things. And figuring out how to get paid and do the accounting side of things. And I'm pretty good at that. I'm an economist, right? I'm pretty good at this stuff.
A smart one.
And thank you. Even for me, it's been challenging, right? Like keeping track of billing, all the accounting side, all the accounting side stuff. And the other piece is balancing workload. So I do consulting primarily. And what that means, so if I get 2 big projects that come out, right, at the same time I have a year's worth of work, except both of them come out from January to June. What do you do? Right? And so for me, what I've had to do is, or what I've been fortunate enough to be able to do is try to find, medical students. And a lot of those medical students are looking for hands-on experience. And, and so I provide them with hourly work, and they're able to provide me with like 5 to 10 hours a week. And I dip into, I'm fortunate, again, my wife is a medical school professor, and so I give some guest lectures for them. So I've been
What's your wife's name, Dr. Block?
Lauren Block.
Lauren, hello. Hope you're all right.
Lauren is a superstar. You're the superstar.
We got you. Yeah. You're gonna be next.
Yes.
Oh, she'd be great.
Yeah, no.
She's had a very different path because I've hopped from organization to organization every sort of 2 years. I'm planning on staying where I currently am for a long time because, and I've turned down a whole bunch of opportunities that have come my way.
Right.
One in this building, actually.
Madison Square Garden.
Playing for the Knicks, right?
Play for the Knicks.
No, that I would not have turned down. But I've turned down some opportunities, so I'm not going to change. But in the last 10 years or so, I've changed every 2 to 3 years. But my wife has had a different path where she's been more consistent and has stayed and progressed within her organization.
Right. Dr. Block, you talked about your son and taking him for ski.
Oh, that was excellent. I didn't even think of that.
Listen to this, Gene. Listen to this.
So I took my son skiing on that day, and I'd stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning during work. And I was not miserable. I was really excited to take him, and he is a perfect ski partner because he doesn't really eat much. He never has to go to the bathroom, and he never gets cold.
Yeah.
So he is my perfect. He's my perfect little ski buddy.
Yeah.
And we take him, and we get to Mount Peter in I guess it's in North Jersey, and it takes us an hour and a half to get there. No traffic, totally fine. That's a long time for a 4-year-old, but that's fine. We get there, and the line to rent him skis, because I'm a longtime skier. I have my own for 20 years. I don't have skis for a 4-year-old, so I wait online, and it's a 90-minute line. Now, for a 4-year-old, that is, Daddy, when are we going to ski? Daddy, when are we going to ski?
Yeah.
And he is running out of patience. And I luckily had a whole bunch of, I'm pretty well prepared. I had a bunch of candy in my pocket.
Always.
That's true. I always bring candy to class.
Candy, I know where to go get it.
It is the secret to my success. Is candy.
There's candy everywhere.
That's how you got all the people not mad at you at that exam. You pull out, I got candy, guys.
No, seriously.
It is the secret. Yeah, it's the secret to my high professor ratings. But so I have candy in my pocket. But it's an hour and a half, and he uses all of his patience, which he had a lot of, waiting in line. And then we get out to ski, and he is sort of done. And so we do that. And then the next year I go looking for, I'm going to buy a pair of used skis, like a cheap pair of used skis. How much could it be? Renting for a day is $50, and buying what is going to be $150. Like I won't have to wait in line.
Right.
And
90 minutes. Priceless.
Yeah, priceless, right? Right. So then I have to drive all over to get like a pair of boots and a pair of skis. I'm like, this isn't so easy. So I'm like, you know what? I can't be the only person with this problem.
Right.
I can't be the only person with this problem.
Solve problems.
So I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'm going to do this, but if I find a vendor that is willing to sell me 10 or 15 pairs of skis for wholesale, I'll buy those 10 or 15 pairs of skis. I will, and lay out, let's call it a $2,000 investment. And this is all at the same time as I'm starting the other business. So I'm using the revenue from the other business to fund the skis.
That's what we do.
So yeah,
Leverage.
So I'm using the other. I'm using that money to buy the skis, and then I buy the skis and I start a company called I call it Port Washington Skis, Port Skis. Right, my town is Port Washington,
okay.
And so it's got a double entendre, right? Because it's the noun skis and the verb skis. And I started a little Facebook page and I advertise to, mostly friends and family, but really, to the broader community because it's targeted towards, parents that have skis, because I don't do adult skis because it's more complicated. But I have, size 8 foot, 9 foot, 10 foot, 11 foot, 12, all the way up through, fourth graders.
Yeah.
Wow.
See what I'm saying? That's how we do it.
Entrepreneurs solve
Side
problems.
hustle. It's a side hustle.
Nah, that's how we do
Dr. Block got a side hustle. I love it.
It's nice though, you know what? Because I meet people from the community. They come to and it's great for them because they
Dr. Block for president.
Dr. Block, you said something. Port Washington, right?
Yes.
A lot of people don't know about Long Island, but there's a part of Long Island that I take every new employee or every new contractor. I'm in real estate.
Okay.
And I take everyone to get inspired to this place in Long Island, Sands Point.
Oh. I know
Sands
Point.
Sands Point, yes.
Yeah.
Sands Point, I think it has to be like the richest part of Long Island.
Absolutely.
Sands Point is one way in, one way out. There's no Billy Joe lives there. Like what's the guy, baseball player?
I used to drive Billy Joe when I was younger.
Really?
Yeah.
To Sands Point, to his house? Oh, so you know Sands Point?
Yes, I know.
Sands Point is no joke. I love Sands Point.
So so I'll tell you a little bit. So I grew up in Port Washington. My wife grew up in Port Washington, and 3 years ago we moved back to the town that we both grew up in.
Cool.
Sands Point is the northern tip of Port Washington. They go to the same school district, and if you Citizen Kane. The movie Citizen Kane,
right.
Rosebud,
Orson Welles.
So the columns, I heard, this is all sort of Sands Point legend, but like I heard that the columns in Citizen Kane were based off of the one of the houses that's there at the very northern tip of Sands Point that's right on the water. Ken Langone lives there.
Yeah.
He is the CEO of Home Depot.
Yep.
He gives talks at our public library. He gave a talk at our public library just a couple of weeks ago about his new book. And I get to ride my bike there. It's one of the best things about living in town. I do like bike rides in one of the most beautiful parts of Long Island.
I love that place.
Sweet. All right.
So, matter of fact, two more questions.
Yeah.
Really quick questions. The first one is, out of Faith, Grind, Inspire, which one resonates with you?
Yeah, I would say it's grind, right? Because at the end of the day,
Dr. Flock for president.
I'm glad that's what you were hoping for. You didn't know what it was going to be, but that's what you were hoping for.
Well, Gina's a grind and I'm a grind.
It's important because every day, right? Every day you got to do your work. You have to respond to the emails that you get. Right? You have to fulfill, right? I have to do everything that I need to do for my business. I need to do by myself. Or I need to hire someone to do it for me, and then it's coming out of my bottom line, right? So you have to make those decisions, but it's really like doing all of the little things. And there's always a laundry list of things. So, for example, on my current laundry list of things, I needed to learn how to use QuickBooks. And I need to, right now, I have all of my accounts in Excel. and I need to migrate over to QuickBooks. I need to learn how to use QuickBooks. And that's just been sitting on my shelf, and that's on me. And so hopefully I'll get a chance to do it, but like it's on me when I miss a payment or I
QuickBooks
miss.
is the best thing in the world.
It's great. It is affordable.
It makes life
it is
easy too, man.
somewhat easy to use. I've had my troubles with it, but like
Yeah.
I need to migrate all
Took
of
me
my
years.
stuff.
But it makes
got my
life
wife
easy. It
handles that
makes
part.
life easy. It makes life easy.
It does. It is
does.
the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's an investment. It's the right thing to do. But it's sort of on me to do it. I've had other things that are on my plate that I haven't gotten to do because I want to. My wife and I, we've been talking about writing a children's book about going to the doctor for the
That's
first time.
going to be awesome.
Yeah, going to the doctor for the first time because it's there. We found that there wasn't anything out there right now. There's a million things about go to sleep, right? But we have a million books on our shelf about animals going to sleep, but there's no books out there about like going to the doctor, right? And there's a bunch of stuff that's a little scary at the doctor. Right. And so we want kids to feel more comfortable. So the night before you go to the doctor, your first doctor's appointment when you're 3 and when you're 4.
No, that's
we
a
want
good idea.
and go into the science, but just a little bit. Why do they take your temperature? Why, when your temperature is 101, you're a little sick, but when it's 98, you're healthy, right? All of that stuff explaining in 2 to 3 sentences using nice illustrations. So all this stuff is sort of on my to-do list, but I haven't gotten to do it, and that's on me.
Okay.
Come on, Dr. Block, let's do it.
We're holding you accountable now.
Yeah, let's do it.
All our listeners are holding
Yeah,
you accountable now. So we have to put this book out now.
When we write the book, so it's my wife and I. She's a physician and medical school professor. I'm a public health professor. So we write the book and we come back.
Absolutely.
All right.
What?
All right.
Are you kidding
No
me?
questions
We'll come
asked. So tell the people where they can find you.
Sure.
Any websites?
Sure. So my website is www.charmeconomics.com. And you can email me at adam@charmeconomics.com. You can find me on Facebook at Port Skis.
Yes.
That's my. So if you're in Long Island and you want to rent your skis for kids, feel free to come by Port Skis, and I give you a beverage with every rental. I'm not saying what kind of beverage, but a beverage with every rental.
Add value. And with that, we want to say thank you, Professor Dr. Block, for coming on. Thank you guys for joining us on another great episode of Faith Grind Inspire. I want to thank our producer, Tim. And today he actually produced this episode on the cameras, too. So shout out to Tim.
Tim was working those guys.
Brianna, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to all our OG podcast listeners. You can find us every Wednesday on OG Podcast Network, faithgrindinspire.com. And remember, keep grinding no matter what.
Yeah.
God bless.
God bless.